They tell you to shine, to be kind, to give, to love freely. They raise you with tales that goodness will always be recognized, that generosity will always be appreciated, that honesty will always be met with honesty. You're taught that if you lead with your heart, life will reward you, that if you treat others well, they'll treat you the same. You're conditioned to believe that love, virtue, and openness are the ultimate currencies of life, and that having them makes you safe. But no one warns you what it really means to carry light in a world that is often starving for it. No one tells you that your warmth, so radiant, so sincere, can make others feel cold by comparison. That your light can trigger envy, insecurity, and even malice in people who never learned to create their own. You start to notice that not everyone is drawn to you because of admiration. Some come with empty hands and hidden agendas. You step into the world glowing, unguarded, and slowly, quietly, you begin to understand. The glow that draws people in also draws predators. Not all of them are cruel in appearance. In fact, most will be charming, attentive, even empathetic at first. But that empathy is manufactured. That attentiveness is strategic. They've studied people like you, people who lead with their hearts. They know the exact phrases that disarm you. They've mastered the art of mirroring your values just enough to slip through your gates unnoticed. You think you found someone who understands you, someone who finally sees you, but what they really see is your usefulness. And by the time their mask slips, by the time the truth emerges, you've already given them the most sacred parts of yourself. Your trust, your time, your belief in them. And that's the real betrayal. Not just what they did, but what they convinced you to ignore in yourself, to let them stay. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in whispers. One small compromise here, one overlooked red flag there. You tell yourself you're just being patient, that you're being mature, that real love is about understanding, forgiveness, sacrifice. So you bend, you soften, you lower your voice even when it's shaking. You silence your intuition in the name of peace. You call it loyalty, but deep down, you know, it's self-abandonment in disguise. And one day you wake up hollow. You look in the mirror and see someone exhausted, fragmented, unrecognizable. Someone who gave so much in the name of goodness that they forgot to protect themselves. That's when the truth pierces. Your empathy became a weapon, just not in your hands. Your kindness wasn't the problem, your lack of discernment was. You were taught to love, but no one taught you to guard your light, to protect your energy like sacred currency, to say no without guilt, to understand that boundaries don't make you cruel, they make you clear, they make you sovereign. And that's what predators hate, a light that not only shines but knows its own power. The world doesn't always reward goodness. It rewards clarity. It rewards self-respect. It rewards those who've learned to pair their heart with their spine. Because being good without being grounded, without awareness, without strategy, isn't noble. It's dangerous. Machiavelli understood this. He warned that in a world ruled by cunning, those who are purely good will be devoured. Not because they lack value, but because they refuse to see the game being played around them. So what now? Now you evolve. You don't harden. You hone. You don't abandon your kindness, you guard it. You become discerning with your light. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand its worth. You choose to love, not blindly, but wisely. You give, not endlessly, but intentionally. And you reserve the deepest parts of yourself for those who have proven they know how to hold them. This is where your real power begins. Not in becoming someone else, but in finally becoming the version of you that no longer bleeds for those who keep cutting. The version that knows. Your light is a gift, not a resource to be exploited. Let others earn access, let your energy be something sacred, because the truth is, not everyone deserves you. And that's not arrogance, that's awareness. You don't need to dim your light, but from now on you learn how to shield it. It's subtle the way it happens. One compromise here, one silence there. You convince yourself you're just being patient, understanding, mature. You suppress your instincts, ignore the red flags, rationalize the pain. Until one day, you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. You've become exhausted, fragmented, a shadow of who you used to be. And you realize that somewhere along the way, your empathy turned into self-betrayal. The truth is harsh. The world doesn't always reward goodness. It rewards confidence. It rewards clarity. It rewards boundaries. Being good without being grounded, without being strategic, is dangerous. You weren't used because you were weak. You were used because you were available, because you were so focused on helping others that you forgot to guard yourself. Machiavelli warned us, in a world ruled by the cunning, those who are purely good become prey. But this is not a reason to become bitter. It's not a call to abandon your light. This is a call to evolve, to rise, not as a victim of your goodness, but as the protector of it, to understand that you can be kind and still say no. You can be generous and still have limits. You can be open and still protect your peace. Being loving does not mean being blind. Forgiveness does not mean allowing repeated harm. You must learn to discern who deserves your energy. Your heart is a garden. Water it wisely. You are not obligated to stay in places that drain you just because you once cared. You do not have to keep people in your life who only come to consume. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to demand reciprocity. You are allowed to protect yourself. Let this be the moment you stop apologizing for your strength. Let this be the chapter where you learn to pair your kindness with courage, your softness with discernment, your light with wisdom. The world doesn't need you to be less of who you are. It needs you to be more aware of who you are, and to protect that person with everything you've got. This isn't the end of your kindness. It's the beginning of your sovereignty. Keep being the light, but from now on be the one who controls the switch. Let others feel your warmth, but never again at the expense of your flame. To step into your power, you must first confront the shadows, not just around you, but within you. Most people never stop to ask why others constantly demand pieces of them. Time, attention, reassurance, validation. They just keep giving, assuming it's kindness. But kindness without awareness becomes self-erasure, until you understand the true nature of human desire, that most people are seeking to take something. You'll remain in a cycle of unconscious sacrifice. The truth is, many aren't driven by greed or malice. They're simply responding to what you've made available. And if you offer yourself endlessly without question or cost, don't be surprised when others start to expect it as a right, not a gift. You've been generous, with your energy, your presence, your loyalty. But somewhere along the way, you forgot to set limits. And when you finally pause, when you take even a moment for yourself, you're met not with gratitude, but with resentment. That's the reveal. They weren't drawn to your soul. They were drawn to your supply. Human nature often seeks the path of least resistance. People stay where they can take freely, exploit what doesn't push back. Machiavelli knew this. Power isn't loud. It isn't about dominance. It's about awareness, the quiet recognition of your own value, and the refusal to place it in the clearance section of someone else's life. You never calculated how often you gave to people who wouldn't lift a hand for you, and now you're drained, wondering where all your energy went. The issue isn't that you gave, it's that you gave without pause. Want to see who truly values you? Set a boundary. Say no. Become a little less available. Watch how quickly the praise turns to criticism. The truth stings. Many loved your usefulness, not your essence. They admired your accessibility, not your spirit. Real respect begins the moment you stop overextending. Not in cruelty, but in clarity. Not in silence as defeat, but in silence as strength. You were never meant to be everyone's solution. You were meant to be your own anchor. We're conditioned to believe that affection is earned through sacrifice, that the more we give, the more we're loved. But that's a lie disguised as virtue. Machiavelli once wrote that people forget the death of a father more quickly than the loss of their fortune. Cruel? Maybe. True? Absolutely. People remember what they gained, not what you endured, and so you wait. You hope one day they'll see your worth, remember your efforts. But that day rarely comes, because when someone always shows up, they begin to blend into the background. You become expected, predictable, invisible. The real shift happens when you choose presence over performance, when you stop being easy to reach, when your yes becomes rarer than your no. That's when value is restored. Scarcity, not abundance, creates desire. The people who seem most respected are often those who withhold, not out of cruelty, but because they understand the economics of attention, your time, your care, your energy. They are currencies, not handouts. The more freely you offer them, the faster they depreciate. Power begins the moment you recognize this. Not when you shout, but when you withhold. Not when you dominate, but when you discern. This world doesn't reward those who give the most. It rewards those who understand when, how, and to whom they give. Generosity is beautiful, but unguarded generosity is dangerous. Every time you pour into someone who hasn't earned it, you lose a piece of yourself. Machiavelli didn't preach cruelty. He preached awareness. He urged us to wake up, to stop believing that being liked equates to being safe, because affection without respect is a trap. It makes you pliable, dependent. Real power begins when you stop trying to be liked. Say no. Set a boundary. Watch who disappears. That's your clarity. Most people aren't chasing freedom. They're chasing approval. And in doing so, they surrender their peace, their voice, their dignity, all for the comfort of acceptance. But approval is fleeting. It vanishes the moment you challenge expectations. Machiavelli warned us, love is conditional. Respect, when truly earned, can weather any storm. So ask yourself, why do they adore your silence yet fear your truth? Because silence is passive, truth is disruptive, and disruption is feared by those who benefit from your compliance. If you want to be respected, you must first respect yourself. That means no longer explaining your worth to those who doubt it, no longer shrinking to be palatable, no longer apologizing for being more than what others are prepared to handle. If someone questions your value, they've already revealed theirs. You're not here to convince them. You're here to become undeniable, not through noise but through presence. True power is forged in solitude, not in applause, but in alignment. Machiavelli understood this, and now, so do you. Real presence doesn't demand attention, it commands it. Not by volume, not by performance, but by vibration, by the energy that enters the room before you speak and lingers long after you've gone. The most powerful person is rarely the one speaking over others. It's the one sitting in silence, eyes steady, posture calm, radiating certainty. They don't need to assert themselves. Their being is the assertion. Their silence is the speech. And that silence, it speaks 1,000 truths. I am not here for approval. I am not here to be consumed. I am not here to perform for those who haven't earned my presence. You cannot access me just because you want to. I am not on demand. I am not easily impressed nor easily disturbed. In a world addicted to instant gratification and emotional impulsiveness, emotional discipline is a rare superpower. The ability to pause, to observe, to choose how and when to respond. That's power. Real power is restraint in a world that wants you reactive. So don't react, don't explain, don't defend, don't beg. Move with intention. Speak with precision. Let your absence echo louder than your presence ever could. Because when you stop chasing the need to be seen, you become unforgettable. You weren't born to be understood. You were born to leave an impression, to live in such a way that even those who don't get you feel you. Not everyone will grasp your depth, and that's not a flaw. That's confirmation. The deeper the water, the fewer who can swim in it. You're not here to be digestible. You're here to be uncharted territory. Respect isn't begged for. It's earned. And it's earned in silence. In how you carry yourself when no one's looking. In how you refuse to shrink when others are intimidated by your light. And when you reach that point, when your self-worth is no longer up for debate, something radical happens. Your enemies begin to study you. They can't figure you out. Their tactics don't work anymore. They can no longer manipulate you because your validation no longer lives in their hands. You are no longer predictable. no longer pliable. And in that unpredictability, in that solid refusal to be moved by anything less than truth, you become untouchable. People are drawn to what they cannot easily define. Mystery is magnetic, and true presence is not about being everywhere. It's about being felt deeply, even in your absence. You become rare, and rarity breeds value. You stop being someone people take for granted and become someone they remember. Not because you were loud or constant or available, but because you changed the atmosphere just by being aligned with yourself. That's the real power. When you no longer try to prove your worth, you embody it. At some point, everyone breaks. And in that break, there's a decision. Stay shattered or rise. Collapse or rebuild. But if you choose to rise, let it not be from the same softness that allowed the fall. Rebuild not from weakness, not from the desperate need to be chosen, but with fire, raw, aware, and unwavering. Let the ashes of who you were become the soil of who you're becoming. Because the real wound was never just what they did, it was how you silenced yourself to justify it. The betrayal wasn't in their lie, it was in how you edited your truth to make space for theirs, how you bent your values to keep the peace, how you made excuses in the name of empathy, when what you truly needed was self-respect. But that ends now. You were never meant to be everyone's comfort zone. You weren't born to carry people's projections or soften your edges for fragile egos. You were meant to be your own foundation, a force so grounded that no storm could uproot you. And when you start to live from that place, something changes. You no longer crave calm from others, you become it. You no longer chase peace, you embody it. And in that embodiment, you realize real peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the refusal to be controlled. It's the calm that comes when you stop abandoning yourself just to keep others comfortable. This is not rebellion. This is return. Return to yourself, to your power, to the truth you kept swallowing just to be loved. Now, love starts with you. And anything that cost your voice, your peace, or your dignity is too expensive to keep. This is power. This is freedom. And it's yours. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. If you're willing to claim it. If you're brave enough to stop asking for permission and finally start acting like you were always meant to lead.